What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of Zach Wilson's throwing mechanics, okay? A lot of people are talking about this kid, obviously a very talented quarterback, and today we're going to break down what makes his arm so strong, how you guys can make some of these off-platform uncomfortable throws, and how you guys can be a little bit more accurate as a passer, and some mechanical things that I think he could maybe improve on a little bit, right? But obviously still a very talented guy, so we're going to get into at the end of this clip, okay? So let's get started with this breakdown. Also, if you're a quarterback and you want to get better reading coverages, being able to improve your football IQ, check out that link in the description that says learn how to read defenses. Full 200 videos, guys, just like this one where I draw on the screen, I break it down. We talk about coverages, we talk about how to read defenses and how you guys can attack defenses. Hopefully get you guys on that soon. Again, link in the description, how to read defenses. Let's get started. So the first throw we're going to be talking about here is this ball downfield. We're going to be talking about how he's able to get so much torque on this ball. We're going to talk a little bit about your arm slot and how it doesn't have to be that perfect over-the-top motion that we were all taught at a young age, right? So let's watch this thing full speed one more time. So you see how he's navigating back here in the pocket. Good base in the pocket, and he's able to drive his hips downfield and lace this thing. That's such a good throw because he's coming to that on like his third read. That's such a good throw. So now, number one, you see how he's sitting back here in the pocket? I think that's the number one thing that remains consistent in a lot of quarterbacks that have a strong arm is they have a very good base, right? Their feet don't get narrow. Their feet don't get super close together because that might cause a long stride. If your feet get super close together and you have this real long stride, it can elongate your motions and elongate that motion and make your shoulders off, right? And so what that does is that creates your elbow to swing down. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the end of this clip. However, a good strong base makes that foot strike get down fast. When you get a fast foot strike, your sequence is timed up. But everybody's foot strike is a little bit different. But you have key similarities throughout the motion that give you a lot more velocity on the throw than others, right? So let's watch this thing. Let's break this thing down just a little bit more. So you see how he's here, and he makes this throw. He's pushing off that back leg to start this throw. He's able to get that front foot down, and when he gets that front foot down, his front shoulder is closed. That's that hip and shoulder dissociation that everybody likes to talk about, okay? Or code for torque. That's how you get more power on the ball. That's how you get more velocity on the ball. When you're able to get your front foot down and have your front shoulder back, you're able to close that front shoulder slightly. It makes that coil with your hips because you're a rotational athlete, right? That's why you have a rotator cuff, and that's why a rotator cuff plays such a big part into a throw. But you're either going to rotate one of two ways. You're not going to sit there and not rotate at all and just throw this thing with your arm. That's physically impossible. The ball is going to go like 2 yards. You have to rotate with something. Quarterbacks are rotational athletes. So you're either going to rotate with your shoulders or with your hips, right? And the thing about your shoulders is that your shoulders can affect accuracy. Now, a lot of people were taught that you want to take this front elbow and swing it down for power. You want to swing that elbow to your hip. That's kind of the old school way of teaching everything. You want to spread your chest, like spread to 90. That's the old school way of teaching, right? This is kind of the game evolves every single year. Every single year there are new types of throws you can work on, new mechanical things that you can work on. So being able to close your shoulder, get your front foot down, and use your front hip to open up. You see how Wilson does a great job of rotating with his hips, and he's able to keep that front hand tight to his body, and he's able to stay level with his shoulders and level with his hips. They call that being square to the throw, right? They call that staying level. He's not letting his arm fly by separating his front side. He's got this pretty good release point right here. He keeps his head relatively level. He kind of dips that head out just a little bit, which kind of elongates the follow through, but that's not a huge deal, right? Everybody throws this thing different. This is the position that you guys want to try to get to every single time we make this throw. Your front foot's down, got a solid front leg, your back hip is coming through before this football does, and your front hip opens up to where you are square to the target. That's how we throw with those hips. A lot of people will be here, especially on a deep ball, and that hand does not end up anywhere near their face. That hand will swing out here, that elbow will swing down, their shoulders won't be level, and their hips won't be level to this throw, which causes their arm to fly. That's why it's so important to drive with your hips. One, gives you more power. But two, if you drive with your shoulders, your release point is affected, right? So let's say you're here, and let's say Wilson were to swing that elbow down. He was to lean out of there with his upper half. That release would get pushed way up high outside of his frame, and if he were to release it late, it would go straight into the ground. If he were to release it early, that ball might pop straight up in the air, and he might not have any consistency or any control on this thing, right? Let's say he was here, and he decided to swing that shoulder this way and end up with his left shoulder almost facing behind himself, right? Your body's split down a midline, right? So whatever your front side's going to do, your right side's going to follow. So again, if he were to be here and he were to be over rotating with that front side, he'd let his arm fly, and he'd have this real like side arm coming across his body motion, and it's hard to change levels on that, and it's hard to throw with touch. But if he's able to stay like you got a pole going down this middle of your back, your front hip wants to open up, your front foot gets down, you have that good sequence, and your shoulders are just along for the ride. Obviously, you don't want to restrict your upper half, but you don't want to be super loose with your upper half to where you swing out and it affects your release point, okay? That's how you guys got to be consistent. That's how you're able to generate more torque on this throw. And then when you have torque on the ball and when you have ground force, rotational force, which is all ground forces, being able to drive off your back leg, keeping a slight bend to your front knee, and then shooting your hips through and keeping a good base, you can turn that into rotational force, which is torque, And then what we got to be able to do to make sure I'm consistent is your arm just pays the tip. Like you're out at dinner, your body's paying the tab, and your arm's just paying the tip. That wrist flick right here is where I'm consistent. You generate torque, you generate power, and then you flick that wrist, almost emphasizing like you're throwing at a dartboard. There's a mechanically sound throw here by Wilson. Let's watch this thing again real quick. Again, great sequence, great job staying square. That's a lot of power on that ball. Great ball right here. Really good job hitting this thing over the top. So now we're going to be talking about an off-platform throw, and this is the definition of what off-platform is. You see coaches all the time. I can't stand it on social media. They'll be working all these fancy, like he'll drift this way, then he'll run this way, and then he'll throw back across the field here. And it's just like, yeah, it's great. It looks cool. The video will get a lot of views. Good for you. But this is a perfect situation of when you actually have to throw off platform, right? So we're here. We're trying to hit this thing in this window, right? So Wilson's getting some pocket pressure, but he does not have time to set his feet because you see how tight of a window this is. If he's here and he drifts out of the pocket and he resets his feet or he hitches up like a lot of quarterbacks do, he does not have time. That ball will be picked off by this safety right here. He's got to make sure that he's able to drift out and throw while he doesn't have his feet set, because that's how those windows, and as he gets older and he gets into the NFL, that window is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And if you're a high school guy watching this, because that's what I know most of you are, or a youth ball guy, every level you progress, those windows get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? A youth guy, I probably don't work a whole lot of off-platform throws with him because it's probably not that much essential, right? I'd rather build the motion first, build the mechanics. If he's ready for it, we'll work the off-platform throws. But with high school guys, all we're doing is off-platform throws, because if you guys can get comfortable being able to buy time back here with your feet, much like Patrick Mahomes does, you see him do that all the time. You see Kyler Murray do that all the time. Much like that, where you drift, you buy time, but you're able to get it out without your feet set. You see his feet are set almost towards the sideline, but when he rotates those shoulders, it's the same sequence. That's how you throw off-platform. Being off-platform doesn't necessarily mean that you take a weird stride or you take a long stride. It's the same stride. You close your shoulders, and at the release point, you see how he's able to stay square. Keeps his shoulders and his hips square even when he doesn't have his feet underneath him. That's the key, right? I'm drifting off platform. I got this backside drift. I see that window open up. I got to hit this throw right now. If I set my feet, I'm late. This thing's going to get picked off, and it's going the other way. I got to get the ball out of my hands right now. I drift. It's the same sequence, even when you're falling away, even when you're off balance. You got to be on platform for a split second. Front foot gets down. I close my shoulders. I let my front hip shoot me through, and your front half stays quiet, especially when you're off platform. You see how when Wilson drifts here, so many guys will let their front side swing out, and they end up falling towards the sideline. And what does that do to your arm? We already talked about it. Split down the midline, front side swings out, your arm's going to fly outside your frame, you're going to be sidearm, and we're going to miss on this side of the field. If you guys can fight the urge to swing out of there with your shoulder and your hip, you're able to drift out and throw. Watch Mahomes if you don't believe me. Watch Mahomes and how Kyler Murray make these off-platform throws. They'll be drifting to their left side. They'll take like 5 drifts, and they'll throw back across the field, and they keep their hips there, and they're able to throw with power. One, Mahomes got a freaky arm, right? He's a very, very talented guy, but even on the short throws, their hips always stay there, their shoulders always stay there, right? Maybe it's that baseball background that those guys have, but you watch a guy like Josh Allen, same thing. Anytime they drift out of there and they have to make a throw without setting their feet, taking a hitch, that myth that you have to set your feet every single time is absolutely not true, right? You got to make sure that you're able to make these types of throws, because the windows just get smaller and smaller, and you got to be able to buy time and got to be able to make a play for yourself. If you want to play quarterback in today's game, because what position gets bigger, faster, stronger every single year? The D-line, right? So if you got to get more comfortable with off-platform throws, you got to get more comfortable with not having your feet set, buying time, extending the play. If you're the most unathletic guy, quarterback probably isn't for you in this day and age. I'm not saying you got to be like Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, but you got to be able to move in the pocket, and this is all the athleticism you need. A guy like Tom Brady does this all the time. Drifting out of there, doesn't have his feet set, he buys a little bit of time, gets the ball out. That's what we got to make sure that we're able to do. Let's watch this thing again, full speed one more time. So he's here, he drifts out, close those shoulders, make sure I stay square. And again, when we're off platform, you got so much momentum. Let's make sure I'm emphasizing that follow through. Trust your hands there, and we will be consistent. Okay, so now let's look at this throw here. This is like kind of like well, let's watch it full speed. This is a really good ball. We're going to talk about how your legs locking out can kind of throw off this sequence, but just an absolute dime of a throw. But you see when he's here, what kind of happens is he lets that back leg extend, and he's not really driving through as much with that hip. So what happens is that back leg trails. I just want you guys to see when the back leg trails, what happens is that your shoulders end up going through before your hips, right? And when your shoulders go through before your back hip, if you guys have a problem of locking out your front leg, you see how he locks out his front leg right here? It's usually because you're not rotating through enough with that back leg, right? So like the sequence sequence of the throw, and again, this is a very, very good throw, right? It's just there's some things that for other quarterbacks that lock out, they lose a lot of power, and that's what we're trying to get at with this. That's what I'm trying to help you with this, showing you this clip. I'm not trying to critique because I'm not a big fan of that because I didn't play at BYU, so I'm not going to sit back and try to critique like a lot of these people will. I'm just pointing out the mechanics so that people can see how this can affect your throwing mechanics, right? How this can affect your throwing motion when you lock out that leg and the reason why behind it. So you see when he's here, anytime you guys leave that back leg trailing behind, like you push off that leg, and a lot of people have this problem where they push but they don't turn it over and their legs extend out. That's usually because you're not rotating enough with your back hip. Sequence of the throw, like I was saying, should be front stride, then hips, and you're almost pivoting off that big toe of your back foot, then shoulders, then the ball comes off your hand, right? Now, the problem with this is that he pushes, but he doesn't really turn that back foot over, as you can see right here. He kind of lets that back leg trail in the grass a little bit long, so his shoulders end up coming through, and then when your shoulders rotate through, it's like you're coming up and then down on the motion, right? You're kind of coming here. When your shoulders are ahead of yourself, you're going to swing that front elbow down, and you see how that makes his release kind of high, and he pushes that thing a little high because his elbow's down by his waist, and that leg extends out because you're not throwing with your upper half in that scenario. Again, very good ball. I'm just pointing it out because a lot of guys, when they lock out, they lose so much velocity on that ball. So if you're one of those quarterbacks that has that problem of locking out, make sure that when you get your front foot down, it stays bent, and when you're pushing off that back leg, you're quick to turn it into rotational force. You want your hips to shoot through before that football shoots through, okay? I hope that makes sense. I hope that kind of helps you guys out in terms of just what you want to do with your lower half. Again, really great ball here, but making sure that my hips come through. The reason why we lock out with my legs usually is because your hips are not rotating through and you're throwing more with your shoulders and your legs aren't engaged in the throw. So make sure we get my legs and my hips engaged in the throw. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please leave those in the comments. And again, if you guys are a quarterback and want to get better reading coverages or any position and you guys want to learn the football IQ side of things, learning how to read defenses is beneficial for any offensive position, check out that link in the description that says improve your reading coverages ability, or I believe it says learn how to read defenses. I'll see you guys next time.